quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Hello, you're listening to the podcast. So there I was. This is episode number 143. Low, heavy, and slow is no way to go through life, son.
Indeed, it is not. In fact, it's a good way to end going through life. Holy smokes. The
Right?
stuff they covered here. Oh, man. No new Patreons or anything this week, but thank you to all of you who otherwise have lost control of your mental faculties and thrown money at us.
Right?
We're deeply grateful and humbled.
Always humbled and grateful.
Yeah.
We're questioning your judgment at every turn, but we're glad you have poor judgment and do help us, because this isn't free to produce.
No, but it is a labor of love. Hey, so if this opening preamble sounds a little different or funny, it's because Fig and I are doing this one over the phone, because Fig absconded from the country. I don't know. What are you, running from the feds or what, Fig? What's going on?
Listen, I can't talk about it, but I can tell you I'm well south of the border. I'm in a Central American country on a little R&R with my bride. And it is fantastic. And at home, it's like -3 where I'm from right now. Yeah. And I got a sunburn. So I'll just leave it at that.
Ooh. Well, they aren't getting a sunburn in Pensacola today. It's in the 20s and snowing. And we topped out at 18 here in New England. So enjoy the warm weather. But speaking of burn. Yeah, speaking of burn, this is a timely one, but a dreadfully sad one that we have this week.
We had our previous guest, Double L, back on. Double L had a very unique mission set in the unit he was in, and they were aerial firefighters. So he gave us a PhD level overview of what a MAFFS unit is and what it's like to fight a fire from the air in a tanker aircraft.
Aside from slightly terrifying on every flight, it looks like fun.
Totally terrifying.
Yeah.
It's a very easy way to get yourself killed, and unfortunately, it's happened on more than one occasion.
Indeed. But I just found it fascinating finding out more detail about how they do it and the things that they do, and that, because one of the comments I said to him, and I don't remember if I said it pre-show or in the show, was it sure seems to me like you're spitting on a fire.
Right.
Even with thousands and thousands of pounds of retardant, you're spitting on the fire. He's like, yeah, you kind of are. But then he explained most of the time they're trying to build a fire break around the fire. They're not trying to put the fire out. They're trying to prevent it from spreading.
I didn't get that.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that before, but that makes total sense.
Right? Yeah. Same here.
You're going to love this because there's so much insight. And we had questions from some listeners at the time. Really, really very informative and really paints a really big picture.
Absolutely.
On what actually happens.
And,
how it works.
Yeah, and then the other thing is he sent us some video over his left shoulder from the cockpit from when he was actually fighting fires back in the day. So we'll put that up on the website. It's sotheriwas.us/episode/143. And it'll be worth going there to take a look-see at that. So I think in the meantime, we should probably get out of the way.
Let's do it.
All right. Don't sit on the fire release.
This here's a true story.
I don't know, man.
About crossing the pond.
I don't know. Don't, whatever it is, just don't sit on it.
That's it. Don't
In the world's smallest cockpit, on the tanker, through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. There I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fun.
So there I was, going down the side of a hill, and there was nothing but fire on both sides of the valley. And the first thing I thought was, what the hell am I doing here? And how did I get here?
Why am I here? And that's how all terrifying aviation tales begin. Welcome, everybody. Repeat here, coming to you from New Hampshire. Co-horse to your home.
I am, as of last night. I'm back in, God's country, Kearney, Missouri, and it is our pleasure to welcome back Double L.
Nowhere to go but down.
Welcome back, Double L.
Yeah.
Going down the side of a mountain with fire on both sides. All right, so obviously
Just real quick, we had Double L on episode 23, so that was a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
Because we're up to one. This is 143. So you're 120 episodes later, and nowhere to go but down since you came back with us. So,
What'd you say
welcome.
the original episode was for him?
23, nowhere to go but up.
No way.
23?
Yeah, way.
Wow.
Way.
Well,
Felt like yesterday.
we thought this would be a apropos time to talk about one of your mission sets that you had, which was aerial firefighting, because there's one hell of a fire going on out on the West Coast right now, and I'm sure they're employing some of those assets. So,
Yeah.
why not, right?
Right, yeah. Down the valley, fire on both sides of the airplane. At least the airplane wasn't on fire. Was it?
No kidding. Yeah. I remember I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who eventually became the wing commander, and he said to me once, he said, doing MAFFS, which is what the Air Force and the Air National Guard does, which stands for Modular Airborne Firefighting System, which is its original name because it's not modular anymore. Now it's a single tank when they made the new tanks, but we kept the name because it was familiar. And he said to me, man, I'll tell you what, fighting fires is a lot more dangerous than going to combat. And that was after a couple tours in Afghanistan. And my first thought was, oh, he's absolutely correct. It is.
Yeah.
Because you're low, man, low and heavy and slow. And it is a challenging environment to operate in.
Yeah.
You know that movie they had a long time ago with Richard Dreyfuss and the other two people escaped.
Right.
But what was that movie called?
I'll look for it. Yeah. Keep going. I'll look for it.
About civilian firefighters.
Yeah.
But, they're in there and they're flying through the smoke and, the flames are coming up. And, we don't fly through the smoke. That's like flying through volcanic ash. That's bad.
Right.
Look, there's some bad stuff in the smoke. So we essentially build a fence around the fire. That's our job as aerial firefighters, is to prevent it from spreading any further. And then just like combat, the guys on the ground really win the war. So those four firefighters on the ground, they go after it and burn it and get all the embers and get all the rest of the flames and stuff. And we just prevent the fire from jumping the line and having any more fuel to keep going. I kind of jumped in there with both feet.
That's okay. I think repeat. We might have found a title to this episode: Low, Heavy, and Slow. That's no way to go through life, son.
No,
I mean,
no, it's not.
From a pilot's perspective, low, heavy, and slow, that's really bad regime to be in, and you don't.
Right, even when you're on the runway, that's not good. Right? When you're on the runway, that's not good for you. Holy smokes.
Hang on to it.
So,
we would fly at almost at max gross weight because the unit itself weighs 15,000 pounds of aluminum.
Oh, my
all
gosh.
the stuff that goes on it. It's got an internal compressor on it at the front. But, the C-130J model, the stretch version, now, granted, I haven't flown it in 9 years, but it used to weigh, I think max gross weight was 166,000 pounds. The H model is 155,000 pounds, unless, of course, they raise that as well. And we would routinely take off at 160,000 pounds. And one of our limitations was we had to carry enough gas in the external or in the wingtips to keep the wings from bending up too much because the fuselage was heavy.
Sure.
So, just like on our commercial airplanes, we have to we burn the center gas first. So we did the same thing. And you're down there and you're and you might get pretty close to the ground. Like we would drop anywhere between 75 feet and 150 feet. And there are some
AGL, right?
AGL. And we would do modified contour, which you guys both know what that is. So
can you describe that? For our non-aviator listeners?
Imagine you're flying over terrain, and the terrain obviously varies, right? You start at 300 feet, let's just say, that's what normal C-130 low-level tactical minimum altitude is 300 feet, day VFR, or day VMC.
Hey, hold on.
Yeah.
What
was that?
Someone's got something humming in the background.
It was loud.
No, you know what that is?
What is that?
That's the my apologies. That's the garage door. My wife's coming. My office sits right above the garage.
There you go.
I thought,
It's right above the garage.
what the hell is that humming sound?
That's the
I
firefighters
was
coming to
listening
get you.
it, my
Got to go
feet
back
went
out.
I hope these guys don't hear this.
All right, it's
No-
going to go
no
down
sweat.
in a minute, so we'll know what it is next time. All right.
Uh-oh.
Yes. You can hear
Got
the
it.
Hold on, that was me. That was me. I'm fixing it, guys. I'm fixing it.
This is we're on amateur hour right now. Don't
Yeah,
worry
we
about
really
it.
are. I just, it's one of those days.
I'm gonna go
All right, we're
close
back.
The door to my office. Hang
Yeah.
on 1 second.
No,
Hang on.
you're good.
I don't want her to,
Don't want to just catch you on the computer
What are you doing?
talking to two dudes on a computer.
I'm going to come in here and go, Phil, help me with the groceries. All right. So.
All right. You were talking about max gross. You're talking about max gross weight, and then we talked about 70 to 150 feet AGL, and then modified contour is what you're about to describe.
Yeah, so hold
modified
on.
contour is,
Hold on. I got to
let's say
do
you
this
started
because
at
we've already screwed everything up. Is the movie was always with Richard Dreyfuss, Holly Hunter, and it looks like John Goodman might have been the third.
John Goodman was in there too.
Yeah.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
Always.
Yep.
So, but yeah, so that's, man. There you go. All right. So now we're back off our sidetrack. Low, heavy, slow. No way to go through life, son.
Yeah. So modified contour. So let's say you start at 300 feet on a flat piece of terrain, and as you go over terrain that may drop away from you, and then terrain that may rise up to meet you, you don't necessarily change that principal altitude. You just kind of accept the hill comes to you, and you cross that terrain at, let's say, 200 feet.
Okay.
So if you're doing a firefighting drop, you may cross the top of the ridge at 50 feet and then push the airplane over to contour the terrain as you go down.
Sure.
Let's say you go down the ridge line, or you go down the finger ridge that goes down into flatter terrain or something like that.
Yep.
And then when the lead plane, the Air Force and the Air National Guard is not allowed to do what's called direct attack, where they get to call their own drops. We're not allowed to do that because it's not our principal mission. So we need the help from the lead plane guys.
Okay.
And the lead plane guys, they communicate with another kind of like the command and control of that particular fire, which is flying above the fire, usually 2,000 to 3,000 feet. And the incident commander or the deputy incident commander is in the airplane looking down on the fire, trying to figure out a strategy where to put the next drop.
Okay.
And then
So is that the person? We had Tammy Joe on episodes 35, 36, somewhere in there. And when she first got out of the Navy, she did not the firefighting itself, but flew in an airplane that guided airplanes in and out and tried to keep the airspace clear, that kind of stuff. Is that who that is?
That would be called air attack. Yeah, that's the command and control airplane that sits above the fire and manages all the resources. Yeah. Okay. So it's very much kind of like a battle. So there's an incident commander, and that person is responsible for all air and ground assets on that fire. So the Palisades fire would have one incident commander. And most likely, since the Palisades are within Los Angeles County, that incident commander is probably a Los Angeles County or possibly Los Angeles City fire captain or something like that, who is trying to figure out the best way to attack. It could be, the fire is described as, there's the origin of the fire, then there's the head of the fire, and that's usually which way the fire is going, right? It's the very top of the fire, which way it's traveling. Then you've got the left shoulder and the right shoulder, and then you have the left flank and the right flank, and he'll decide, these houses, these people are in jeopardy, put a load of retardant on the, head of the fire to prevent it from going any further towards the structures. So, and then if you want, we can get into different agencies. Oh, sorry.
No, we're all walking on each other because we got a delay today. So sorry about that. Keep going.
My apologies. There's a list of agencies that fight fires in the United States, right? So in California, there's CAL FIRE. That's the state's fire department. That's run by technically the governor of California. There's LA City, LA County. There's the U.S. Forest Service. There's BLM. there's Bureau of Indian Affairs. All of those agencies, depending on where the fire is, will be the lead agency on who fights that particular fire.
That sounds.
So it's a
bureaucratical, difficult. Yeah, that sounds difficult.
Bureaucratical. That's my George Bush word. My apologies. Sorry.
Bureaucratical.
Bureaucratical.
There you go.
So
okay, I'm going to ask.
Strategery.
I have a series of questions queued up, but let's take
All right,
one at a time.
Ditto.
And this is just low hanging fruit right here. Is this daytime only, or is this day and night?
For the U.S. Air Force and Air National Guard, daytime only.
Okay.
Yep. From official sunup to official sundown.
So 30 minutes or 15 minutes prior to sun up to 15 minutes after sunset or something like that, or 30 minutes?
Yeah, I think we can go to 30 minutes after sunset, yeah. So was it civil twilight?
Okay.
Nautical twilight? Well, I can't remember.
So obviously you were a military asset.
Yep.
How many units are there that we have in the States that do this mission? And are they all Air Guard or are some Air Reserve components?
There are 4 units, 3 Air Guard, 1 Air Force Reserve. The Air Force Reserve unit is at Colorado Springs. The Air National Guard units are the Channel Islands Air National Guard Base in California, which is based at Point Mugu. The Reno Air National Guard, which is in Reno, obviously, Nevada Air National Guard, and the Cheyenne Air National Guard unit in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Okay.
And each unit has 2 MAFFS units.
Two systems?
2 systems, yeah. Each unit, so there's a total of 8 systems.
Okay. And are the systems are interchangeable, so you can roll one off and put it on a different tail, or is it tail specific?
Nope, they're completely interchangeable. So the way we used to do it at Channel Islands was maintenance would dedicate 2 airplanes at the beginning of the season.
Okay.
And we would put the numbers, the orange or cerise numbers on the side of the planes. And the numbers represent the number, the MAFFS unit number, the system's number.
Okay.
So our numbers were 4 and 6. And that has been that way since 1971 when they first made them. Like Colorado Springs has 5 and something else. I can't remember what. I'd have to go back and look. But
yeah, so saw some photos of that online when I was looking a little bit earlier.
Is that the big cerise number that they put on the tail? Then the number of the number unit, MAFF unit,
and then your call sign is MAFFS, and then whatever number you have. So we were MAFFS 4 and MAFFS 6.
Okay.
Nice.
So, and then what would happen is if you did a certain amount of drops, as you know, maintenance can only let the airplane fly for so long before it has to be inspected. So if we had a really busy fire season, those 2 tails would just be swapped out at some point when we reached the minimum number of hours and the minimum number of sorties. We would swap it to a new tail, and then that original airplane would go get inspected, and it might get rotated back into the system.
Yeah, that was actually one of my questions. How do the firefighting missions impact the aircraft structural integrity and maintenance schedule and all that? So they're going to need extra maintenance because they're flying heavy? And
Correct, yeah. So what we did, maintenance decided that for every hour it flew MAFFS, it was equivalent to 5 hours of normal flight time.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so it was a lot of flight time as compared to what a normal operational mission would be. So they got inspected a lot quicker. So usually after about, I think it was probably 60 hours, we'd pull the unit off and then we would put it on another airplane. You can't hold me to those numbers because things have probably changed in 8, but it's something along those lines.
Yeah. So I put up an overlay. That's the picture of them pushing that onto the airplane, loading it on.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can see where that guy's hand is
on the right bottom left.
Yep.
On the bottom left there.
Yeah.
So that's what's called the dissemination tube, and it goes out the left paratroop door. and it kind of makes an S pattern. It goes out the door, and then it hangs left, and it streamlines the fuselage as it faces aft.
Okay.
And then
So
that
that's the
tube on
discharge.
the top,
That's the discharge for the retardant.
that's the discharge. Yeah.
Okay.
The
How long does it
dissemination.
take to load, and then how long does it take to unload, and how much quantity retardant is in there?
So I have been told from the time they pull the MAFFS unit out of the hangar until they put it on the airplane takes about 4 hours for them
Wow.
to hook it all up in the airplane.
Okay.
Since you leave it on there, the fire tanker bases all over the West, they have what are called pits, and they're very much like a NASCAR race, right? So you kind of pull the airplane into this pit, and off to the side is usually an inflatable bathtub type looking thing, and it's where the dry retardant goes in and mixes with water, makes this sludge, and then they have a pump that pumps it into the airplane from a hose. So it's
Gotcha.
very much like NASCAR. They plug it into the side of the unit, they plug in fuel at the same time, and they plug in air to compress it because it needs air to shoot out. So they do all three of those, and honestly, to do that, 15 minutes.
And are you able to do it with the engines running, or you got to shut down?
No, we shut down. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a safety thing. So
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts out there.
the Air Force safety chicken's out there running around with his hat on and his bullhorn telling you can't do that. So.
Yeah.
The safety chicken.
So
Wow.
what is the oh, there's a good picture.
There you go.
So
that's
what you're
exactly
talking
what it
about,
looks like. Yeah, just like that.
Nice job, Sticks. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome aboard, Sticks, by the way. So what is the train? What kind of training's involved for the crew to be qualified to do this?
Yeah, because you don't
So,
just get in and do that.
No. So first the unit will select the people that they want to put into the mission every year. And usually it's 2 to 3 new people. And it's also depending on the attrition from the last year, right?
Sure.
The old guys retire and they got to upgrade new guys. So usually 2 to 3, and you become a co-pilot first.
Okay.
I don't know what the training requirements are now to upgrade to aircraft commander, but like everything else in the military, it is subjective. So you will get selected to be a co-pilot. Then you go through training. That training happens every year. It used to happen in May, but it has now started to happen in February because the fire season seems to get longer and longer.
Yeah.
And we in the West Coast, we wouldn't start fighting fires until probably late July, August.
Okay.
Now, I mean, it's January. We're fighting fires in January. I gotta be honest. In the 18 years I did it, I never fought fires in January. That's unprecedented. So anyway,
let me ask that. Jump in then and ask, because right now the Santa Anas are going on. Are they early or are they late, or is it
they
just
seem late to me. Usually they're
Okay.
a fall type thing.
okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's been my experience. Like Thanksgiving time frame, October,
Yeah.
November, early December.
Yeah. Okay.
We have had fires on Thanksgiving Day where we have been dropping on Thanksgiving Day. I've seen that.
Oof.
Anyway, so back to training. So what happens is it's a combined training event, and usually it's 2 MAFFS units. In other words, like Cheyenne and Channel Islands get together, and then the Forest Service, BLM, and CAL FIRE all come to this one large training event at whatever base they choose. Every year, somebody switches hosting it. So let's just say it's in California. So CAL FIRE, with both their not their tankers, but their lead planes come. The Forest Service and BLM come with their lead planes, and then all 4 units, MAFFS units, and when I say MAFFS units, I mean the system itself. All 4 systems come with 2 airplanes apiece from each unit, and then we all fly. We go to training drop areas, and we just drop water. We don't drop any retardant, because retardant's expensive. So.
Yeah.
Are you dropping on a fire? Did they light a fire for you?
No, we're just dropping on trees, whatever.
Okay.
But the thing that surprised me, we're dropping on squirrels. The thing that surprised me was when I first started doing this was that each agency has its own land. Like that forest, like the Los Padres National Forest, is owned by the Forest Service. And certain land in other parts of the country are owned by Bureau of Land Management, BLM. And then CAL FIRE has their own land, and everyone has kind of their own responsibilities. So when the fire starts on Forest Service land, their incident commander is a Forest Service employee, and they're responsible to fight that fire. And they can request assets from the military or from civilian assets, from the Forest Service assets. They can get them from just about anybody. So, and then they fight the fire as they see fit. So, and the other thing that surprised me was...
Oh, go ahead.
The other thing that surprised me the most was that the Forest Service, BLM, and CAL FIRE have different... What do I want to say? Have different strategies on how to fight fires. The Forest Service will let a fire burn if it's not threatening people or structures. They want it to burn, to clear it out. CAL FIRE, they want to put out fires, no matter where they are. BLM is the same. So it can be interesting to see a forest fire, but it's not near any structures or people, and they'll just let it burn for a while. And quite frankly, I've been told that that's a good thing. They get rid of the stuff on the bottom of the forest. They get rid of dead trees, stuff that becomes fuel later on.
Do they at least put fire breaks around it so that it won't threaten?
Yes, I believe they do. Yeah, if it gets really, really big, of course, they'll start to do that. But that's some of the command and control type stuff that doesn't involve the flyers themselves.
Yeah. It sounds like there's some significant competing interests there, depending on whose territory it's in.
As we all know, the federal government can be territorial at times.
What?
Weird.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
It's weird.
So a quick question I have on it, though, is like, in this case, I put up a map of it there's just fire everywhere, and it's more than one fire. And so you've got several different pieces of airspace being controlled by different people. And do you, I'm assuming, or no?
Well, what you're looking at least on this picture, is mostly Los Angeles County. I mean, as you get as you get near Oxnard and as you get near Santa Barbara, that becomes Ventura County and Santa Barbara County.
Okay.
And as you come out towards San Bernardino, that becomes San Bernardino County and farther out. So each one of those counties will have a person who works for those counties be the incident commander, most likely.
Okay. And is your unit participating right now? Do you know?
We are. Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. The MAFFS commander is also flies for my airline. And I know him pretty well. So I just text him periodically, hey, hope you guys are being safe, because it's both challenging and it can be a dangerous mission at the same time. And all you got to do is watch YouTube and see how close those guys get to the ground to realize how critical. Yeah, there you go. There's MAFFS 6.
Good.
So,
and I'm guessing it's only a little bit exhausting on a good day.
Yes. And I know the record, I have been told, is 21 drops in a day. And that was accomplished in Boise, Idaho, when basically the hills above the airport were burning. So 21 drops. So that's 21 takeoffs, 21 landings, 21 checklists, 21,
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot. The most
Garage
I've ever
door's
done.
going down.
Oh yeah, sorry, garage door's going down. I guess she's leaving.
Yeah,
She's had
there
enough.
you go. She's had enough of you.
Hi, Lisa, I miss you.
So the most I've ever done in a day is 14, and I can tell you my rear end was pretty tired by the time that was over.
Do you have I think you do. I think I've seen it. Do you have a cockpit video of you doing a MAFFS delivery?
I do. Yeah, I got a bunch of them.
Could you share that with us?
Oh,
We'll
yeah,
put it on our
sure.
website.
Yeah, sure.
Would you be willing to do that?
Sure.
Okay. We'll
Yeah,
get it up on the
no problem.
website with this episode.
So I asked you about the training, but specifically, I know that we don't practice doing low levels, slow and low and heavy. So do you do a little flying around, just to, do you, or is this all just done? Hey, we're gonna run in, we're gonna drop. Because obviously there's some serious threats involved there. Low, slow, heavy.
Particularly terrain.
And what kind of maneuvering limits do you put on yourself? And talk us through that.
So let's say you take an average training sortie, right? And what'll happen is you'll take off, you'll join up with the lead plane, and the lead plane pilot will say, "What would you guys like to see? Do you want a flat drop? Do you want a medium drop? Do you want a really steep drop? How long do you want your final?" All those kind of things. So what'll happen is, if you're a MAFFS instructor in the right seat and you're teaching a new MAFFS aircraft commander who's never flown MAFFS before, now he's in the left seat, you'll just describe all those aerodynamic forces that are going to happen and how to strategize to, depending on the steepness and the severity of the drop, how the airplane's going to fly, and most importantly, what your escape is. So you never want to drop downhill only to find out that you're flying right into another hill, right? So you got to kind of figure out, okay, I'm going to drop downhill, and if, let's say, I lose an engine, the MAFFS unit malfunctions, and I can't get the retardant off, where am I going? Most of the time, when you're dropping downhill on the side of a mountain, you just keep going straight. You got enough airspeed. The other big problem is that when you push the button and the retardant comes out of that pinnacle in the back of the airplane, it actually accelerates the airplane like a jet engine.
No.
Just a little bit. It does. Yeah.
Does it add yaw because it's coming only out of one side?
No, not enough to be.
Oh, because it's coming straight out the back.
It's coming straight out. Yeah, because it's streamlining the
fuselage. Yeah.
Okay.
So you don't really notice it, but you do notice the acceleration. And the other problem is that in the C-130, both the J model and the H model, you're going to most likely drop at 100% flaps, which is all the way down, which in an airliner is about 30% flaps. Would you agree with that? 30, 40, something like that?
Yeah, 30, 40 degree flaps here. Yeah.
You put 100% when you're going downhill, and that's so you can get really slow at the top of the hill. Like I've had the airplane in the J model, it will actually, the GPWS will actually say stall, stall, stall. And I have gotten it right to the stall message at the top of the ridge, and then you unload and push over down the ridge, and the airplane accelerates quickly. And the biggest thing now for co-pilots is he's holding on to the flap handle, holding on to the button, and he's pushing the button, and he's watching the airspeed to modulate the flaps up so that you don't overspeed the flaps. Because it goes like that. It goes very quick.
Flaps on speed to 50, so to speak, as you're coming downhill.
Now you got 180. Exactly. So there's a lot of dynamics happening. In that picture that you guys just showed of MAFFS 6 coming downhill, you can kind of analyze what configuration the airplane's in. And so the aircraft commander, the pilot flying the airplane, his only job is, not to hit the ground. There you go. So you can see the flaps are down, but they're probably on their way up because that's probably halfway through the drop. And it takes about 6 seconds for all 3,000 gallons to come out of the back of that thing.
6 seconds. That's fast. I mean, that's fast.
And people have asked me about the CG change, and I got to be honest, I have never noticed the CG change. I mean, obviously there is one, but it happens so quickly that it's never really been a factor. So
500 gallons a second for marine math there. Holy.
It goes quick, man. It goes quick, yeah. So, and your biggest thing is you're like, okay, don't want to fly in the smoke. Oh, and you have a lead plane in front of you at the same time.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of dynamics going on when you're
important not to hit that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to tell them, because we treat getting ready to drop onto a fire very much like a pattern in an airport, right? You got downwind, you got crosswind, you got final, or you got base, you got final. And I used to, usually you're about 500 feet apart from the lead plane. The lead plane's a King Air, Queen Air, something like that. It's got a smoke generator, so he'll call your drop by popping smoke, and then when you fly through the smoke, you push the button.
Okay. So sweet, okay.
Which is really nice. It used to be we used to use ground reference points, but that wasn't as accurate.
Well, how is that affected by these 60-mile-an-hour winds at the Santa Anas?
A lot, which is why you want to drop low to the ground. There is a video on YouTube that I saw somewhere. It's of a CAL FIRE C-130, and he's kind of dropping, like the ridge kind of comes down like this, and he's dropping along the ridge. So obviously the train falls away from him, and the wind is blowing pretty hard. And this just happened the other day. And he pushes the button, and you can see all of the retardant just drifting away from the terrain. So you have to figure out, okay, how low am I going to go versus the retardant effectiveness at this altitude versus the wind versus all those kind of things. So it's you look at it like you're landed on a strong crosswind, and you go, okay, I got to put it right there, so I got to be upwind to half a wing length or
Sure.
just outside the wing tip or something like that.
Okay.
So.
And then you've got all kinds of different airplanes. We were talking pre-show. You got DC-10s, you got C-130s. It looks like there's the old flying boat Catalinas are somehow involved too. Are those the guys that scoop up their water from a lake?
I can't remember what those are called. They're made in Canada, and those guys, there used to be, I think there used to be like 2 of them in the world, but there's probably a lot more by now. I would imagine.
That looks terrifying.
It does look. It does.
It does.
I've never shared a tanker base with them, so I've never had an opportunity to talk to them personally. We used to go to McClellan in Sacramento a lot. That's a huge Cal Fire tanker base up there, and we were based with the DC-10, the 10 tanker guys. And we would go over and we'd have lunch with them and talk to them about. And they'd give us a tour of the airplane and a bunch of other things and just see how they operated. And I have dropped behind the DC-10 before, and when I say that, I just mean after him. Mm-hmm. The way it works is if you get to a fire and you check in with the lead plane, because every fire has a TFR around it, right? So only the people who are operating in the fire can go around.
Bill, what's a TFR stand for? Temporary flight.
There you go.
Sorry, I wouldn't try to stop the dummy, but we throw out a lot of acronyms around here. We want to make sure everybody knows what we're talking about.
We don't do a lot of TFR flying in the 787 anymore, so I've forgotten. I forgot what it was.
Go.
I'm sorry. I turned into a lazy airline pilot. So anyhow.
So Sticks found a picture of it. If you go watch our YouTube or Rumble feed on this, that's a Canadair C-215 he found and put the banner up a little bit ago. So
yeah, those guys do a lot of drops a day, man. They never have to land. They hit a lake. They hit I guess last I saw on the news was they were going out into the Pacific Ocean and picking up
salt water, huh? But salt water will damage buildings and never mind.
What about the
fire?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Let's focus on what's important. My living room is burning down. Maybe we should use just anything we can get. So
sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was I talking about?
Well, you were talking about dropping behind the DC-10, and the other number you threw out before that, you were telling me they got 10,000 gallons, so they're 3 times as much fire retardant as the C-130.
They are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
The thing that I have been told, and I never flew the DC-10, so I don't know, but the Dash 30 has a lot more power and has a lot more.
Did you fly that model, repeat?
I did. I flew the Dash 10 and the Dash 30. The Dash 30 has as much thrust on 2 engines as a Dash 10 does on 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's that much more. It's like 20,000 pounds per engine on a Dash 10 and 30,000 pounds per engine on a Dash 30.
So it's very much like a C-130J compared to an H model.
Okay.
Yeah, we have the same amount of power with 3 engines that they have with 4. So
bragger,
and it's much more slick.
Bragger.
So anyway, so what you do is you check in with lead plane before you get to the TFR.
Okay.
And he says, okay, you're cleared in the TFR. I'm going to drop with Tanker 10 now. So just join up behind him. So what you do is you stack about 500 feet above. I would put him in the left, in the left knee window down there in the Herc. And I would just fly just outside his radius and watch where he was going to drop. Because most likely I was just going to tag on to the end of his line and extend his drop. Okay. And that way I could see the lead plane and I could see the tanker. And we're always doing left-hand turns, just like, NASCAR.
Okay.
And as soon as he drops, he peels off to the right. And where I am, now I can just drop in right behind the lead plane. We don't have to waste any time and we can go right to work. So, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then are you dropping on the fire or around the fire? Where are you dropping?
So our job is to build the fence around the fire to prevent the fire from getting any bigger.
Okay.
So that's why we drop in these lines. And also we're there to protect structures and people. So a lot of times, if you go and you look at some of the fires that have happened in Ventura County in the last day or two, you'll see some of those retardant lines are right around the edges of houses. So what they're dropping is they're dropping 100 yards outside the house on the terrain, on the brush, so that the fire won't jump the brush and go into the house.
Gotcha.
So that's essentially the strategy behind air tankers. Now, if you have people and structures in that are being threatened and they got no place to go, then they may want you to drop on them. I have done that before, but they also might want to find cover at the same time because it's, it weighs 10 pounds a gallon. So getting hit by something that weighs 10 pounds a gallon, and you're dropping 3,000 gallons on them.
Ooh,
30,000 pounds.
That could flatten you
hurt.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Tim.
Yeah.
And what does that retardant look, smell, feel like? Is it pure liquid? Is there powder in it? Or I'm assuming that whatever's
Pasty,
in there
right?
is to make it is to make it more residual.
Yeah, so it's called Phos-Chek. I got to be honest, I don't know who it's made by, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was made by Dow Chemical.
What are the odds?
It is, and there's a scientist
Start
out
the fire,
there
finish the fire.
Yeah, you might as well. So, yeah, it's a circle of money.
Yeah, a little napalm, then a little retardant.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, it works. But what was I going to say?
Sorry.
So
I was asking you
Phos-Chek-
about what it's like, and is it sticky, and what's the word I'm looking for?
What's it taste like?
Is it
You come
viscous?
out of there. Are you coming out of there orange after doing a bunch of drops? I mean, does it get?
No.
Okay.
No, not really. So the loadmasters in the back may get a little bit like on their boots or something, but it's toxic. First of all, it's a combination of fertilizer, dye marker, and fire retardant. And there's a scientist out there who will correct me, I'm sure. But my job wasn't to know the compounds of the fire retardant. It was just to put it where they wanted it. So,
Yeah.
But it shows up in remember the old iced tea mix that would come powdered and you'd add water to it?
Mm-hmm.
And it would make iced tea. Remember that?
Yes.
It's very much like that. We dump in this dry Phos-Chek, they mix water, and it goes from water's about 6.7 pounds per gallon, and it goes to 10 pounds. Makes it really sludgy. And it sticks to the branches and the ground and all that stuff and prevents them from burning. So
Nice.
essentially what it's like. Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know what it smells like because I never bothered.
The double L, the MAFF unit that shoots this out that chute, the nozzle. I can't remember. You had a name for it. Is it? You say it's compressed, so it's compressed air is pushing it out, or is there a pump that's running that's shoving it out?
It's compressed air. And I have forgotten, fellas, how much compressed air it is or what the PSI is. But the new units themselves have an onboard compressor that is powered by the onboard electrical system in the C-130. It's at the front of the cargo compartment, and it will compress the tank for drop. The problem with that onboard compressor is it's not as strong as the compressors at the tanker base. Okay. So you can get enough air to compress at the tanker base in about 5 minutes, whereas it may take up to 20 if you do it internally on the airplane.
Okay.
So a lot of times if we're going to a fire that's a ways away and we need to compress, we just compress on the way to the fire. And it sounds kind of like you got a lawnmower in the back of the airplane. It's just chugging right along. It's kind of loud. It sounds like my garage door as it opens.
Okay. And so you kind of alluded to this, but let me just make sure. So the crew component on your MAFFS airplane is the same as basically a combat sortie would be. You got 2 loads, 2 pilots, and I guess in a J you don't have an engineer.
Yeah, we have in the J model you got 2 pilots and 2 loadmasters. That's it. In the H, you got an engineer. Do you have a nav in the H?
Yeah. Yep.
So then you'd have a nav on board. So.
Yeah, so you guys it's just a normal crew of 4, 2 pilots, 2 loads. Yep. And could you just kind of walk us through? You just landed. You're in the middle of fighting a fire somewhere. You just landed, and you got to get refilled, replenished, right? So what's the timeline from the time you shut all 4 down to the time you start all 4 up and go again on it when you got a real burner going?
So let's say we just land, we're taxiing in, we shut down the outboard engines so that as we pull into the pit, because we're pretty close, we're probably stretching Air Force safety standards a little bit as we pull into the pit, because you got guys from the Forest Service, from the manufacturer of the Fozcheck, whoever, that are not used to being around C-130s, although they probably are now, that are going to get close to the airplane. You shut down the outboards first, you pull into the pit, you shut down the inboards, and then what they do is they hook up retardant into the retardant valve. Then
Does that go through the left paratroop door? They open the left paratroop door and shove it?
Ironically, it goes through the right paratroop door.
Oh.
So you got to bring it around to the back of the airplane and then plug it in.
Okay.
So you got retardant coming on the unit on the right-hand side, and then you have pressurization coming on to the right-hand side. And then most likely, if you need gas, and sometimes you don't, if the fire's really close, you can go out and back a couple of times without having to get gas. But you got to remember, you need gas in the outboard wingtips, right, to balance it out for structural integrity. And you might need gas. And quite frankly, gas is the longest thing to refuel. And when I say longest, maybe 3 extra minutes longer.
Okay.
Retardant. So you could probably, from the time you shut down until the time you're ready to crank up again, 15, 20 minutes.
That's pretty quick turnaround time.
It's pretty quick. You don't, obviously, you don't fill up the tanks full of gas. Usually, I remember...
You're already heavy enough.
Yeah, you're already heavy enough. I remember I couldn't take more than about 24,000 pounds of fuel, and the airplane normally takes, 42. So that was the most I could take, just for structural integrity.
Sure.
So I'm guessing it's one pass, drop all, right? You don't drop a little and then come back and drop a little. It's one pass, drop all.
The new unit, you could drop a little. We used to call it painting. So it's got a trigger. So as long as you hold the trigger, the little pintle in the back opens and the retardant comes out. As soon as you release the trigger, the pintle stops. So you could drop a little bit, go fly around and hit it from a different rate and pull it again and drop the rest of it.
So who has control of the trigger? Which crew?
So the co-pilot, the guy in the right seat, is the only person who controls the trigger, and the guy in the left seat does all the flying. And there's no like swapping back and forth. So you'd have to switch seats. And that's, if you put two MAFFS aircraft commanders together, depending on, how they want to do it, they'll say, hey, listen, today I'll be in the left seat, you be in the right seat, and then tomorrow we'll swap. Especially if you're working a pretty active fire, like the Palisades fire.
Yeah. And how many days in a row have you ever done?
I have done 2 weeks straight, with a day off in between.
Sure.
Whoa.
I got 79 drops in 12 days. And I don't think I could walk much after that. I was pretty...
Yeah, right?
No.
I was really
just
tired.
pour you out of the airplane and...
I remember I did my last drop. I was barely horizontal. I was, I could barely stand up, so I was barely vertical. But I remember on the last day we were dropping in Boise, and my relief showed up, and I thought, dude, I just want to get on Alaska Airlines and go home so bad. I can't even. I'm so tired. The first couple days you're excited. You're dropping on a fire. You're doing an actual mission where you're saving people and you're saving property and you're doing something that's really good. And by the 10th day, you're so tired that the only thing you want to do is just go lay on the couch somewhere because you're just exhausted. So
get it.
It can get challenging. At least in combat, at least in Afghanistan, you were flying one day off, one day on, one day off.
Yeah.
So most of the time, but yeah.
So
firefighting
currency. Once fire season starts and everybody's trained up, is there you have to have a takeoff, approach, and landing every 30 days to maintain your currency just to fly the airplane? Yeah. Is there any currency requirements for the MAFFS once fire season starts?
When I did it, there was not.
Okay.
You had to have to upgrade to go from co-pilot to aircraft commander and MAFFS. You had to have a certain amount of actual drops. And I got to be honest, I can't remember what that number was, but it was probably like 10, probably something like that.
Right.
Before you could upgrade. And then if you were going to be a MAFFS instructor, you had to drop on a certain number of fires and a certain number of drops. So But honestly, usually before you get selected to be a MAFFS co-pilot, you've probably been in the unit 4 years, probably, as a guard or reserve guy.
And you're already
And
checked
then-
out as aircraft commander, and
You're already
probably,
checked out as an aircraft commander.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
And and it's all depending on your competence too. If you're kind of a schmo, then they're probably not going to upgrade you. But
Could you define is schmo? Is that an acronym that stands for
That's
something?
a technical term.
it probably is an acronym, but I don't
It
know.
might
what
be
it is.
Yiddish.
Like stupid mother, yeah. All right.
The funny part is whoever's listening is when I say the word schmo, they're probably like, "Oh yeah, I know that guy."
Yeah. Everybody knows who the schmo is. Trust me.
Yeah, everybody knows. So
Okay, I'm gonna ask you this because this is kind of seems like a silly question, but you're gonna get where I'm going with this. So, other than the obvious, low to the ground, slow, heavy, what threats are there involving
My question exactly. Yeah.
flying into these fires? Well, what kind of threats besides the low, slow, and heavy?
the weather.
'Cause that's
Thunderstorms
not
make
enough.
their own.
Okay.
Yeah, thunderstorms make their own or fires make their own thunderstorms. And
course they do.
unfortunately, on July 1st, 2012, when Charlotte Air National Guard had C-130s, they were a MAFFS unit for a really long time. They went to C-17s, but on that day, MAFFS 7, which is no longer an active number because it was retired, crashed due to a microburst next to a fire they were just about to drop on.
Shit.
It unfortunately killed the entire cockpit crew. Both loadmasters survived. And it happened at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a perfectly beautiful day. If you wanted to go back and look at the accident investigation, essentially it wasn't the lead's fault, but he kind of thought it was his own fault, but it really wasn't. He flew through a microburst, and according to his flight recorded data, missed impacting the ground by 57 feet, I think it was.
Oh shit! This is the lead, the lead plane, which was
And
what
he
kind of
could
plane?
not- which is like a King Air or Queen Air, something like that.
okay.
So turboprop, twin engine turboprop airplane with only one guy in it, right? So it's not heavy. And then MAFFS was right behind him, 500 feet behind him, and they went through the same microburst. But the difference is the airplane weighs 155,000 pounds. They were only at 120 knots with the flaps at 100.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
and they're only 200 feet above the ground. So they were, they were in a serious amount of jeopardy just based on their configuration, their airspeed, their weight,
Sure.
and where they were in proximity to the ground.
Not going to power out of that.
So that stopped military aerial firefighting for the rest of the year while the investigation happened. And then it drove some more restrictive flying around fires depending on whether we had a thunderstorm or not, or whether microbursts were in the vicinity. And that prevented us from dropping on a bunch of fires. I don't know what it is now. I'm sure the program and some of the rules have matured over time. But, the Air Force is has over the last 20 years has become very averse to risk in any way. So my guess is that rule for flying around thunderstorms is still, I think it was 25 miles, but I could be wrong. Somebody could correct me. But fires make their own thunderstorms, especially really big ones.
Yeah.
So
And of course, not much rain falls out of them, just lightning to start more
just
fires,
lightning.
right?
Yeah, and then downdraft that start more fires. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And then here's a very good point. Drones are now a threat because people don't get the hell out of the way.
No, they want
Got to go take pictures of this fire. No, not your business.
No. And the TFR drives some of that. The temporary flight restriction. See.
Yeah,
I
but
remember
some
Nice.
schmo who went out to Best Buy and bought himself a drone isn't paying attention to that. I mean, you're supposed to, but if they don't, they don't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a dangerous mission, and all those guys they all volunteer for it, and
Sure.
most people, men and women who join the military, want to do good in the world,
Right.
and this is at the top of the do good list when you're trying to save people's houses.
What raised the hair on the back of your neck the most when fighting fires?
I remember dropping up in Northern California near Chico once, and we were dropping below a ridge line, and the ridge the ridge was climbing up on the left-hand side and climbing up on the right-hand side, so it was kind of like the Star Wars Canyon. And we were coming down to fight a fire that was going up the left ridge line. And I just remember being in the right-hand seat, and I was training a new aircraft commander, and I just remember thinking, this wing looks really close to those trees over there.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I go, watch the trees. And he kind of looked over at me, and I said, dude, don't look at me, look out that way. So anyway, he kind of adjusted slightly to the right and got the trees. And there are more incidents or more examples of stuff like that. You get down in the dirt. You don't want to fly through the smoke because now you can't see anything. So you can't see the terrain, you can't see your escape, you can't see anything else. And I did a long time ago when I was a new aircraft commander get dragged through a very small smoke column, and you lose sight for just a second. And I remember that really got my adrenaline going there for a second until we popped out. So,
I bet.
Yeah.
Right. So you were IFR for a brief
probably
second.
A second, but it was enough to when you're 100 feet off the ground, man. 1 second is not a lot of time.
Well, I'm sure it seems like an eternity, and you're waiting for the mountain goat to show up right in front of you.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
The mountain goat that's running with fire on his back. Holy shit!
Right.
I went
mountain goat. What's he doing up here in his clouds, and why is he on fire?
Yeah.
So
I remember going next to a fire in Idaho once, and as we went by it to drop on it, I felt the heat on the window as we went by.
Oh dear God!
I'd never felt that before. I thought that got my attention. So
I can only imagine.
That'd get my attention for real.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
I've had enough fun for today. No, Mr. Wizard, I don't want to be a firefighting pilot anymore.
Double L, I used to think not that much of you, but now, after this conversation, I think a lot more of you.
well, I appreciate it because I barely think about myself at all. So,
And he never thinks about you.
Yeah, that's a really complex and dangerous mission, and the fact that we do that, military guys do that. That's pretty awesome, and how fortunate that you got to do that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Do you have a velocity vector and a HUD?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Did you have a velocity vector and a HUD? Do you have a HUD and a velocity vector to help you avoid ground and terrain impact? Or?
In the J model, you do, yeah. But
Okay.
it's all
H model.
You know how it goes. After a while, you start looking through the HUD, and you're back to doing it the old-fashioned way.
Right.
I look at airspeed. I don't even look at altitude. I'm using my Mark 82 eyeballs to look at the terrain,
Yeah.
because also trees are not equal, right? So some trees are really tall, some trees are really short. So you never know. We call them snags. Every once in a while, taller tree will stick up out of the shorter trees, and you don't see it right away. So you're always looking for those snags and making sure that they're not out there, so that one piece of lumber doesn't go through the left wing. You don't want to do that.
So for those of you listening to the audio version of this only, I'm going to cut out the video that Sticks just played. It goes for about 2 minutes, but it is fascinating. So I highly encourage you to go to So There I Was YouTube feed, and I'll pull up what that is. We'll announce it here in a minute. But it's fascinating to watch and listen. Bitchin' Betty, of course, is very unhappy with the altitude and terrain.
I heard her saying stall, just like the double L said.
Yeah.
And that sound, with that whoosh sound, was that the retardant going out?
That's the retardant leaving the airplane, yeah.
Okay. And I noticed a lot of other retardant already on the ground in front of you at a couple points there. So, all right.
So a lot of times we just tag onto the red line at the end, because you don't want to leave a gap, right? You'd rather overlap and make the line shorter, as opposed to leave a gap and let the fire go through that gap.
Sure.
You can see, at least in that video, the more overhead cockpit video, you can see how close to the ground they are.
Oh, yeah.
In some of that video, you can see the fire trucks that they go right over the top of. There's not a lot outside. It's kind of a lousy perspective, but you're that close to the ground. So those guys are probably 100 feet off the ground. Yeah. And
that was low.
There was supposed to be a software change in the J model that prevented that, the landing gear.
Too low gear.
There was that was because or altitude. But that's set by the radar altimeter, and usually we would set radar altimeter to like 100 feet just to kind of give you a heads up on how low you get. 'Cause you guys both know that after you fly really low to the ground for a while, you start to feel like you're high, so you get lower and lower and lower.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Is there not an override switch for that JIPRO system to turn it off? It's the ground proximity warning system.
There's a MAFFS override switch that specifically was made for those airplanes.
Okay. So for whatever reason, it just wasn't overridden on that. Maybe it wasn't in yet, or depending on the age of that video and all that. So, all right.
But yeah, it gets a little dicey, man. It gets, and it gets, those guys, those, I want to call them kids now because they're a lot younger than me, but they're good for them. I'm glad they're doing it. So, and they're pretty talented. So it's a challenging and sometimes surprising mission.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound good. We don't like this kind of stuff.
The only problem with them young like that is they're all NAFOD. No apparent fear of death. They're young and bulletproof.
I would have to agree with you on that. Yes.
Yeah.
I have had the same problem, by the way.
Yeah.
I think we all have.
Fortunately, I'm past that, but oh my God.
Yes, I'm way past that now. But I know I suffered from that for, quite a while.
At least 50 years in your case, Fig.
Whoa.
Past it now.
And it was, you just had to just triggered a thought. I remember after doing the first air-to-air sortie I'd done with Trip, our CO.
Yeah.
We did a neutral pass, and, you're supposed to have a 500-foot bubble. And I was not going to let him have an inch. And so my 500-foot bubble was probably really a lot less than 500. And he says to me in the debrief, "Yeah, son, that wasn't 500 feet." So
was I too far out, boss?
Yeah, I'm sorry, sir. I thought
I'll get closer next time.
Your 500 bubble is not 500 feet.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oops. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it gets, those guys on the Palisades fire was not far from from Point Magoo. So they probably dropped, made a right-hand turn, went back up the coast, refueled, reloaded, and it came right back.
Yeah. Any observations about what you see going on down there right now? How they're working it, what they're doing, and that's a real nebulous question. I know.
You mean how the assets are being utilized?
Yeah. Any observations that you have that I probably wouldn't have, not being familiar with firefighting operations in aircraft and not understanding the terrain and proximity out in Southern California of all those fires to each other and.
Well, everyone, it's a little bit of a history lesson, but everyone a long time ago probably saw the video of the C-130 losing its wings, both wings folded up.
I do remember.
Let's talk about that real quick, because that's a horrific video.
Horrific. I don't even watch it because it's, when you fly that airplane, you're like, I don't need to see that.
Give you the chills.
I'm scared enough as it is. So, and then about a week later, I don't remember the airplane, but it was an old World War II airplane. The same exact thing happened.
Oh, yeah.
The wings came off. Yeah, remember that was in Colorado somewhere?
Yeah.
So what had happened was that C-130, I believe, was a B model, and the Air Force had donated or they sold it or something along those lines, and the company that owned it never did the airworthiness directives over like 25 years. Oh. And the Air Force changed its wing boxes much sooner, and these guys didn't do any preventative maintenance at all, and basically the wing box just collapsed and the wings came off. So, which is some of the civilian air tankers are for-profit businesses, right? And they have contracts through the Forest Service, through BLM, through the government, and sometimes doing what the Air Force considers necessary maintenance, they don't consider necessary, and they don't do it. I'm kind of speaking from 25 years ago. It's possible that has changed over time, and that the Forest Service has now driven greater inspection regulations than they have previously. But in 1971, when MAFFS was created, it was created because there were forest fires that destroyed a bunch of DoD government buildings in New Mexico, like a lot of money. So at the time, the Secretary of Defense said, we need an aerial firefighting system to help us save DoD property, because there was no DoD aerial firefighting apparatus at all. It was all civilian airplanes. So this unit was created in 9 months, and we used it from and the Channel Islands, or at the time the Van Nuys Air National Guard unit was the first test bed, and then they made 8 of them, and they distributed them to the units that had the most fire, was closest to the most wildland fires in the country, which was Cheyenne, Colorado Springs. There was also, there's a big forest on the East Coast, so they made Charlotte, and then they made us because California. And over time, the units they just became old, and they needed a replacement. So, I think it was 2003, 2001, they started to contract with Aero Union in Chico, California, to make a new unit because they were the original manufacturers of the old unit. So they had this expertise. So they finally got it, and the new unit now holds 4,000 gallons, although we never filled it completely up for structural reasons. And then they gave them to the original units, the original 4 that had the old ones, because they had the most expertise. And then after Charlotte had their accident in 2012, and they went to C-17s, Reno became a new MAFFS unit. So now it's the 4 units. And if you look at the way forest fire behavior begins, usually most forest fires start about Colorado in about June, right? Then they kind of work their way north up into Montana, and then over to Idaho, over to Washington, Oregon, and then they come back down to Southern California by the time November comes around. They kind of do this counterclockwise fire behavior where you can expect the fires to start. So what we did was we would leave California, we would go to Colorado, we would assist them in their fires, and then when we needed help in California, Cheyenne and Colorado Springs would come to California and they'd help us. So we all were very familiar with each other. And the Forest Service and BLM, we all got to know those folks as well, very well. And we all worked really well together. But the way it works is, by law, the civilian tankers have to be called first. And they have to be exhausted. And then the military can be called. And it was to protect the economy of those civilian tanker companies.
So the government isn't competing with them. Okay.
Exactly. So they were very vocal lobby group to say, when you write this law, which was called the Economy Act of 1972 or something, you have to say that the U.S. military cannot come in and, basically take our fires, for lack of a better phrase, until we're completely exhausted and we can't do it anymore. And since that C-130 and whatever that old World War II airplane crashed in Colorado back 20 years ago, the majority of the civilian firefighting companies have swapped out their old World War II airplanes for new civilian airliners like the DC-10, the 737. I saw an MD-80 in there. And so they're definitely becoming more competitive and more, and their capabilities are greater. So when things get really, really bad, they call us, but they don't call us until things get really, really bad.
Okay.
So
thank you for that. I had no
idea.
Story
very long.
That. No, I appreciated the history of it too.
Yeah, likewise. I never even thought about that. If people are doing this for profit, it's like competing with the post office.
Gee, I wonder what companies do that.
Look how that turned out. Did you guys ever see that scene in Cheers where the guy says, what would happen if we didn't have the post office? And the guy goes, well, we have FedEx. That's why,
Exactly. So, oh man.
More trustworthy anyway.
So
those guys are flying right now at Channel Islands. I think all 8 units are there. So they've got 8 airplanes there. They're probably flying. They probably get launch orders right when they show up for the briefing in the morning. And they're probably flying until sunset.
I bet it's like, the Daytona 500 around there. With the crews refueling and what do you call that? Reslurry?
Resurfacing. Yeah.
Resurfacing the MAFF.
Yeah. So usually you get off, if you shut down the airplane you're flying, you're the co-pilot, you get off the airplane, you got 15 minutes, you can go to the bathroom, grab your box lunch, and then head back to the plane. And then you can eat your box lunch on the way to the fire. So
eat your old box nasty on the way to the weenie roast. Yeah. Buddy.
Couple of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and a bag of chips, stuff that'll keep you going till the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, all you need is calories, right?
Right? Exactly.
Just a little
Exactly,
energy.
so.
Keep it going.
All right.
Maybe,
Well, I think we're getting close to dark here on the East Coast, so it's probably time we land this airplane to keep it within regulations,
can't fight fires in the dark with an airplane.
No, and
Double L already told us that.
Exactly. So we've...
Hey, you guys want to hear something funny?
Yeah,
Yes.
we do. There you go.
The Air Force actually came to us once and said, "Can you guys fight fires on MVGs?"
Oh, dear God.
Like,
Wait a minute.
only a person who doesn't fly airplanes thought that was a good idea. Yeah.
So hold on a second. I get this, and I know Repeat gets this, but could you just for somebody that maybe listening
never strapped on an
listening
MVG
sooner, that doesn't know what looking through MVGs is like, can you explain how moronic that question was, please?
Looking like through, those, I want to call them soda straws, but they're a little wider than that. The toilet paper rolls,
Sure.
imagine putting one up to your eyeball and like that.
Yeah.
You're looking through that. Oh, and it's green. The whole thing's green. So how are you going to distinguish? And also they work great when it's really dark, but when you throw in a fire, it's just going to white them out. So you're not going to be able to distinguish between the fire line and what's on the ground. And you got cultural lighting, and you got, you got lights coming off of the fire trucks, and
But they specifically pick up heat, infrared.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, it's
So
not.
it just blooms everything out.
That was
I'll never
truly.
forget when Big Air Force came to us and said, "Hey, we want you guys to do firefighting on MVGs." And
How do
You
you
first.
I wonder who they're going to get to do that, because I'm not doing it.
You guys first.
That is-
you do it. Come back, tell us how it works, then we'll do it.
That is really a moronic question.
Yeah.
That is somebody that has no clue.
No.
Right?
That's
Whatsoever.
amazing. That's
It's
amazing.
a non-er question,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So, all right. Well,
Should
we
we
should
land
land
this
this
thing?
plane. Yeah, we should. And so, thank you again, Double L, for your service.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
guys. Thank you for yours. And I'll send you a video. It's around here somewhere, but I'll find it. I'll send it to you.
We'll get it up with
Yeah.
this episode, and we.
That was a lot of good information, buddy.
It
I
really was,
appreciate it.
and someone I don't know who came up with the idea about doing this, but in this particular time, some of the worst fires in the history of California going on right now. And when and where we've taken a lighthearted approach at it, it isn't because we think this is a lighthearted subject at all. We're a couple crayon-eating Marines, and we like to yuck it up and laugh. We're not yucking it up and laughing, though, at the utter devastation that people are enduring
not
out there
at all.
right now. Our thoughts and prayers are with everyone who has lost so much and facing literally starting over with the clothes on their backs. I can't imagine.
I have my opinions about how some of that should have been managed in the first place, but
Right.
those are, you can find those online anywhere you go. So
Right.
I do know that the minute there's a fire, you probably have most of the firefighting crews, pilots and loadmasters, calling the base saying, "Have we been activated? I'm ready to go." So
Yeah.
there's
That's
no
awesome.
shortage of volunteerism when it comes to this kind of thing, especially when you're talking about your backyard. I mean, from Point Magoo to Palisades is I've never measured it, but it can't be more than 15 or 20 miles as the crow flies.
Oh, wow,
So-
that's fast. Yeah,
It's pretty quick. Yeah.
that's fast.
And
Hey,
go ahead.
go ahead. I was just,
I'd ask Sticks to see if he could find a Red Cross donation URL, and we'll put that up with our thing as well if you want to help out people in SoCal. I know there's a couple different ones, but go ahead, Fig.
on a lighter note, I like the red ones, crayons, because they taste like cherries.
I like grape purple.
I'm more of a black pen guy, so I could sign my pay voucher.
No, there you go. You Air Force guys.
You know, Double L is a Marine. He hides that well, but
Yeah.
he started out as a Marine, and I have it on good authority. Actually, I've seen a picture of him in his dress blues. Quite striking young man back then.
Yeah,
And-
not like what you see today.
Oh no! Slow down.
What
Now.
happened?
You've seasoned. Let's just say
Yeah.
you're seasoned now.
Yes.
Okay.
Like a pot roast.
There you go. All right.
Okay.
Well, Styx has come up with a URL, secure.projecthope.org. Secure.projecthope.org. Thanks for finding that, Styx. We deeply appreciate it. I don't think we're going to yuck it up much here on the outro, but we do want to say thanks so much to Dave Hamilton and backbeatmedia.com for helping us out with getting this show up and running. Also, thank you to Styx, Tobago. If you can give us a rating, so there was .us/rate would be most helpful. If you want to write to us, Styx at so there was .us. He can answer all your questions. If you want to.
If you want
reach
an
out to Figure
intelligent
Me.
answer.
Yeah, if you want an intelligent answer. But if you want to reach out to Figure Me, it's repeat at so there was .us, REPETE, or fig at so there was .us. You can also reach Bag or Styx, same URL. Got the merch store, so there was.us/merch. Get that bikini, get that shot glass, get a coffee mug, some shirts. And thank you to all the veterans for their service, particularly those out there on the front lines right now fighting those fires. Appreciate all you do. And then finally, the last two. We forgot BDSaviationphotography.com. Badass is here with us listening today. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Badass.
Yeah.
Thanks for giving us those awesome pictures. that you
Amazing
have
shots.
Bajillions of.
Right.
They're all
good
awesome.
stuff. Yeah.
And then, of course,
And then the Dos Gringos.
the two Air Force pilots that make the Air Force sound good.
Right. Fantastic stuff. All right, everybody. A little bit more of a serious show this week. We appreciate Double L coming on with us and talking about this horrible, horrible stuff, but the cool stuff that people are doing to get through this situation. So, in the meantime, till next week, stay safe and check 6.
There I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
Is what?
Yes, he said it's over.
Over. What are you talking about?
And we're out.